Hey, Ra.
I like how you said send it to a friend you don't like.
Well, I mean, listen, if you send it to a friend you don't like, then maybe that friend will become a friend again.
Right, right.
So, so yesterday I had like the first time in I don't know how long. I had all of a sudden this big rush in my heart, and it was like heart palpitations, anxiousness, also excitement, but anxiousness. So it's like I had to go out and do fascial maneuvers in the middle of the day a couple of times to calm myself down, which is not my normal reality right now. I'm wondering, did you have anything going on yesterday?
No, just meetings all day long. So it was hard. I was a little distracted. It was literally like Zooms all day, like every other hour
Yeah,
for
me
me.
too. It was just like appointment after appointment after
Yeah,
appointment.
was, which is, it was more than usual. I remember thinking that,
Yeah,
but I didn't
yeah.
notice anything like what
It
you're
was
saying.
it was bizarre. It was definitely more than usual. I remember like I was sitting there yesterday going, "Whoa, what is everything going?" But yesterday was a believe day. Yesterday's a day where everybody's trying to understand what it is that they believe about themselves and about what their heart wants and about where they want to be. And today's a belong day. Today's a grand master day in Aquarius. So as Aquarius is ruled by fairness, community, it's ruled by separation and also by going their own direction. Aquarius is also ruled by belonging. So this today's a day where people are like, do I belong here? Do I belong doing this? And if they're following their heart, it's okay. If they're not following their heart, woo, today's going to be a rough one.
Yeah, it brings us into our humanity too, right? Aquarius is the human
Yes.
within the charts.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at astrology yet, but yeah, the belong, believe. So those questions provoke, right, and applies a little bit of pressure and allows us to respond to the question. And so when you're saying believe, it like that seems to be at the forefront of a lot of people's minds right now, or like, what am I, like, what do I believe? Is the world flat? Is the world round? Is the world millions of years old? Like, there's all of these questions and very little answers. And so it really just does come down to like what we are in tune with and how we can allow that to integrate into our life.
Well, we're in it. If you look at Chris's step system, we're in 2024. 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. 8 is a decide year. Last year we were in a sensing and spiritual Pisces year. So right now people are making and in this spiritual year everything is revealed. Like everything that's not right with your higher purpose and what you're here for gets shown to you. And that was 2023. And in 2024, it's making a decision. That's why it's the beliefs are being, people are asked to being exercised on their belief. Because if I make a decision at the end of it, it's going to be on what I believe.
Hey Gary, there's a question here about which I feel like you would have a really interesting answer for. I do as well, but it's up. It says how to release the trauma of heartbreak. I think we should answer that.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, okay. So
I can.
today's a really powerful day to do that because it's what our heart, this is really where our heart belongs today. So why don't we do a heart opener together? And then why don't we go through a balancing of the heart and the head? And then let's go through an affirmation that sets with it.
All right. That's the, yeah. It's a full answer here.
Full hand. Okay, so let's all do a heart opener. So everybody who's out there, we're going to put your phone down. We're going to make this really simple. What we're going to do is you take both your hands, you put them in your chest, and feel in your sternum, feel where it's restricted the most. Like go from your xiphoid up. So mine is restricted right here under garage. And then what I want you to do is put your hands, pull them apart as hard as you can, push them apart. Push your chest up, tighten up your spine, and breathe. Move side to side a little bit. Breathe. Deep breaths. Bend over and breathe and rotate. When you bend over, lift up your chin. Whoa, yeah. Okay. Whew. Okay. I'm feeling that one. Feeling that?
Yeah.
And then, what are you feeling?
Me?
Yeah.
I feel like there's that tight area. It feels like it's extending into my past. So it's like this freaking tunnel that like goes into my past. It's weird, but I can't really put it into words.
Okay, so let's go through. This is our heart, leading our heart. Where is our past? Thoracic number 6, because the heart meridian goes down here and then goes down the back in the same way. So what we're gonna do is take our hands, grab both sides of the spine as far down as you can go. You're gonna bring your elbows together and bring your chin to your chest. Tighten up your spine, and you feel that stretch right in that in the rhomboids area. Okay, now breathe in. 2, 3, and then look up to the right like you're doing anti-gravity. Keep your hips forward and breathe. Go all the way up to the left and breathe. Roll forward, bend your knees. Keep bending your knees, roll forward. If you go down to a full squat, go down to the full squat. And then breathe. Come on up. I got another one. I keep finding hairpins all over my rooms in Vancouver and here. It doesn't seem like anybody wears them, and I have no idea where they come from.
Really?
Yeah, I got another one, and no one's wearing them. No one's freaking in here other than us. And it's
Good thing
like,
you're finding them and not Cynthia.
well, she found one in Vancouver, and she's like, "What's going on up here?" And I'm like, "I haven't even been up here." Okay, how do you feel now?
Good.
Okay, so
Good.
now
There's
we have the mechanics of our heart being open, because the heart itself, the fascia, is what brings the electricity, and the electricity is when the bones. First of all, the fascia is piezoelectric, so that if you create pressure, it creates electricity. And also when the bones touch, they also create electricity. So this area here, now we have it open up, we have the heart firing. So put uh, put your right hand on your heart, left hand over top of it. And we're going to breathe in. As we breathe in, imagine that there's green energy, green gas coming through your front, to your back, and then around. So we're going to do 6 breaths, 3 through the mouth and 3 through the nose. Breathe in. Bring that green gas in. Again, through your nose. 2, 3. I'm opening up my heart to receive.
I'm opening up my heart to receive.
I'm opening up my heart for my greatest good.
I'm opening up my heart for my greatest good.
I'm opening up my heart to compassion.
I'm opening up my heart to compassion.
Now put your left hand on your head. Imagine that same circle of energy. Breathe in 3 times to your mouth. Breathe in. 2, 3. Through your nose. 2, 3. Thank you, heart,
You, heart,
for the heartbreak you've shown me,
for the heartbreak you've shown me,
so that I can have contrast to what my heart is capable of feeling.
so that I can have a contrast to what my heart is capable of feeling.
I'm ready to open my heart
I'm ready to open my heart
with compassion, knowing that everything has a purpose.
knowing that everything has a
I
purpose.
accept this heartbreak feeling
I accept this heartbreak feeling
as a lesson
as a lesson
that drives me forward.
that drives me forward.
Breathe into your mouth again. 2, 3. Nose. 2, 3. Now walk around, integrate that. Sit in that feeling for a minute. How do you feel?
Good. I feel light. Light.
Yeah. So in the comments, everybody put down how you feel after doing that. And whoever asks the question, specifically put down how you feel. Say, I asked the question, I feel like this. And let's see what people say. Put down what you feel in your body, in your heart, in your mind. Tears came down nonstop. Feel love. Felt the relief. Calm. Peaceful. Release. Letting go. Crying. More accepting. Relaxed. Yeah, and thank you for pointing it out, Ra, because today is really a Grandmaster Aquarius Day. It's step 4. It's the personal Grandmaster Aquarius Day. So it's what my heart feels and believes, because Aquarius is about following your heart.
These responses are crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get that question all the time. So,
Well, it's the most important thing is it's we feel the pain, so we say it's a hard break. But without the contrast of that, I don't know what, if I don't have that pain, I don't know what feeling awesome and great is. And so pain is there as a teacher to show us, and to also to keep us in check, because we often lose track of what our heart wants.
yeah, there is like a humbling aspect of that as well. So that when we do have fullness, we don't take it for granted because we have a context of like what could happen if we don't maintain our relationships, because that's ultimately our responsibility. If there's, two people involved, it's each of our responsibility to maintain the relationship and also to maintain ourself, and to not be so reliant on the other person to make sure that we're showing up with our cup full, that so we can pour into them, and then their cup is full and they can pour into us. And that's how we have a fulfilling relationship and a full heart.
Somebody said, how do I let go of childhood sexual abuse? And so I was abused sexually as a child. And my journey, it's funny because now I look back at it, I can see points where I questioned if that happened. But when I was questioning it, I didn't really realize it, if that makes sense. And when I came to the understanding and the memories of what happened, the only thing I had was compassion. But this was recently, like this was just months ago, where the full magnitude, the question was answered, the question I put out there. And what we just did is we opened up our heart. And when our heart's open, we make sense of things. Like, I can be a victim of abuse, or I realize that I'm a good person and I'm here doing good things in the world, and I wasn't happy with myself all the way through. I love myself today. I really do. But and now at this stage, I can honestly say that it was incrementally opening up my heart, and then it went away. I'm not focusing on releasing sexual abuse. I was focusing on releasing and opening up my heart, because when my heart's open, I no longer am a victim. I recognize that everything was made a part of me. Like, if there's one thing that changed, that sexual abuse was a part of who I am today. It's why I'm here.
I'm glad you brought that up as well, because it's so hard for people to understand how childhood sexual abuse isn't, it's hard to understand how you can take another standpoint besides the victim, because you're so vulnerable at that stage. And it's not really up to me to tell somebody else they're not a victim in that standpoint, but it's great to see an example of somebody claiming responsibility, claiming their beingness around an event that is tragic.
Yeah.
In a way.
Well, I think it's, I mean, this is why there's been a lot of rough stuff in your life growing up. There's been a lot of rough stuff in my life growing up. It's without those, the architect of a human being is we come in here with programming that comes from somewhere else. Like, when I was 5 years old, I saw a coffin and I immediately became afraid of it. But I didn't have TV back then. So, like, how did I know what a coffin was? Well, I didn't see it anywhere. It's because somewhere in some state of awareness, and let's say some lifetime or other dimension, I brought that information into this world, and it made me afraid. Like, somebody has a fear of snakes. Some people don't have a fear of snakes or spiders or whatever. So it has to come from somewhere, because there was nowhere in this world that came from. And in the first 30 years of our life, we come in and our DNA is programmed with certain experiences. And we attract that to us so that we can get the emotion out, so we don't have to live it in this life. And so part of it was, if I was sexually abused, which was a little bit, like, I know it was a little bit. It wasn't years of torturous abuse. That I've worked with people that have been ritually abused. Like completely beat up, abused. I mean, the worst cases. And mine was just this big. But this big was all I needed to have the feeling and emotion in this life, because I bring that emotion in, I process it here, then I don't have to attract any more of that in my life. But while I'm still holding on to it in a victim mode, guess what I do?
Right.
I attract more of it until I let it go.
Because you're in the program. Yeah. And you're recognizing all the symbols and you're attracting it. You're like, what we focus on, we get drawn into.
Yeah. So another way to say it is, every experience I've had, every injury I've had, every business deal that's failed, every relationship that's failed, every going to prison, all of that, I attracted all of that to bring the experiences so that I could become who I am today. Now, I can wait to the end of my life and realize that night. I tell people, if you really want to get this, there's a 37-minute Academy Award-winning documentary called The Lady in Number 6. If you're in our Lifestyle Artist program, it's in there. It's imbued in the program. In that documentary, it's the oldest living Holocaust survivor, 112 years old. And she lost her whole family, her mom, her dad, her brothers, sister, husbands, children. And at 112 years old, she was state kept because she played piano. So she entertained the Nazis. And she, at the end of her life, at that time, she says, this was the Holocaust was the best experience of my entire life. And it took me 10 years to understand the message that she was giving me, which was, with enough time, everything makes sense.
Mhm.
So if it's going to make sense somewhere between now and the time I die, literally cross over, why don't I learn to make sense of it here today? Why do I wait 50 or 100 years or 60 years or whatever?
And that's what we were saying last week. Pretend, right? Like if it doesn't make sense, what if it did? Like what would need like what how would you need to be? What would what would the context be where it did make sense?
Right.
And then that you build that bridge. And maybe you walk over it today, maybe you don't. Maybe you know it's there. Maybe like forgiveness, for example, is the bridge. Maybe you're not ready for it today, but at least you know that well, there's a bridge. And maybe there's something else. Maybe you take a lesson from it. And you can pretend, and then you can go through the motions, and then one day you're just like, oh, I'm on the other side. And now you've got wisdom.
So you use the word forgiveness, which is really important because forgiveness, I used to think was from a high position. I forgive you. Now I will accept you. But true forgiveness is saying thank you for what that brought to me.
I look at forgiveness, right. And I like how you started that heart. I'll go back to what you're saying. I'll respond to that. I like how that comes true because even in that heartbreak meditation we did, the first line was, thank you for the heartbreak. Thank you, heartbreak, for showing me, and being able to take this forward into my life. That's extremely important in all therapy, is to have gratitude. And that's when you go into this spiritual community, the gratitude is the main thing. But it also doesn't just apply to the good things in our life. That's the lesson, is that it applies to all of our life. Are we able to be grateful for everything in our life? But back to forgiveness, I like to think about forgiveness as like, if we're not forgiving somebody, we are in the past, right?
Yeah.
Our energy is trapped back there. And forgiveness is about ourself. And it's about bringing that energy forward. So we're giving, instead of giving that energy back, we're now bringing it forward. We're giving forward the energy that was in the past trapped there. It has nothing to do with the other person. You're right.
Right.
Absolutely nothing to do. It happens within yourself.
You know, not that I'm a fan of Benny Hinn. I'll just put that out there right now, but he's an evangelist. And I read a book from him back in the 90s called The Bait of Satan. And listen, my life has been like I when I was a kid, I went to church 5 days a week, right? And then I went away from it. I went to Kabbalah, I studied Sanskrit. I went all over looking for answers. And one of the interesting thing is that a lot of the answers I found was when I looked into the dark places, right? And Benny Hinn said in this book, it got me. He goes, if I sin against you, and then I ask for forgiveness, so I forgive myself, whatever that means. If you believe you have to ask your creator and forgive yourself, and then, but you are angry at me, then you are carrying that part of that sin onward. And I didn't understand, I understood the concept of it, but now I have a true understanding of the body. And when I hold that anger, that is the sin, because that is what's destroying me. That anger, that emotion, that fear, the sadness, the grief, the anger, the resentment, that's what we end up working out of people's body. That's what people are doing right now. They're working that out. That is the proverbial sin, because that's damaging the spirit of us.
And I mean, every aspect of this reality, like if there's two people that bump into each other and there's an event, right? And let's say there's an aggressor and a victim, right? They're experiencing the same event from different sides. And like you said, there's work to do in that event from both people, but it's both of their responsibilities. And yeah, even if you're the quote victim in the scenario, you're still a part of that energetic explosion that happened. And we do have to let these energies move through us, or we do get to let these energies move through us so that we can then process the next and evolve and evolve and evolve, and then be able to integrate it first into our life and then into the lives of others, either as a teacher or a parent. And that's how we evolve as a species.
You know, it's interesting because here's another topic I deal with a lot: victim versus persecutor, or creating the action and receiving the action. So, from a soul's perspective, we both came to this world, to this plane of existence, with an agreement to have an experience. And and as a soul, I've had every experience, from being a rock to a monkey to being a human to being a victim to being a king to being a pauper. That's why I don't like when astrologists and people say you were just this and that, because you identify with those minute stories. But we've been them all. The person who persecutes or who does the harm agrees to pay a bigger price in this world than the one receiving it, because they have a physical action in this world that brings more physical pain in this world for doing it. Like, the person who does the harm actually has the worst life. The victim, all they have to do is get out of the victim mentality, and then they can transmute that into positive energy. The person who did it physically did something. That physical act comes back.
Yeah, from a multi-dimensional or multi-lifetime perspective, the person that is going through the struggle, that's the reward. That's
Yeah.
why you come here.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
You're getting, that's your cake.
Right.
It's the one who's delivering the other side. That's the punishment.
Yeah. It's almost like, oh man, yeah, exactly. It's hard to put in English language how that can be, but definitely, if you get to come here and have the easy life where everything goes your way and you're taking advantage of others and yada yada yada, that's almost like a torture. It's kind of like, it's like work. It's work for the soul to have to do that. And the struggles and the growth and the possibilities that come out of the toughness of life is the reward.
So someone asked the question, what happens when you get stuck in victim mindset? Okay, so mindset. Your mind is, all it's doing is it's taking, your brain is taking all the data, remembering it, putting it back together and presenting it to you. You're not stuck here. You're stuck in here. You take care of the stress in your body and the trauma processes every time. That's our whole program. That's the worldwide program that people are doing right now.
And the mind's job is to make sense of the setting, right? It's just to find proof for that setting.
Yes.
So you can choose a different setting and you will learn to find proof and validation for a different setting, a joyous setting, a happy setting, an accepting setting.
Yeah, the people, I tell people all the time, the brain's job literally is to identify a pattern and resolve it. That's actually all the brain does. It looks at patterns, resolves, looks at patterns. And when it can't resolve it, like a big emotion, fear, I don't know why it's there. So the brain just keeps trying to resolve it and it can't get rid of it. It can't make sense of it because I have nothing to fear about. So it keeps
Stronger
going to process it.
Stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah,
more
and then so what
fear.
happens is we take the body out of stress for a minimum of 28 days. We stand out here and that goes out here. I see it from another angle. I go, and we triangulate the experience so we can navigate where we are in the experience. That's why the body cannot navigate the experience when it's in stress. That's why they put Navy SEALs through all those stressors and they teach them to, how long are you underwater? Count your heartbeats. They teach them little tools and tricks so they can navigate through an experience, because when they're in the emotion, they can't navigate the experience. Time, reality doesn't make sense when you're in the emotion.
The Egyptian initiate practices that lasted 26 years also was a lot about controlling, or at least being able to maintain your integrity through the emotions of fear and anger. It wasn't necessarily about blocking them off. It was about being able to experience them and still operate, not letting it shut your body down, and almost being able to call up these emotions at will.
Did they
Like
do
if
that
you need,
for 26 years or till 26?
it's a 20, according to Junvalo Melchizedek, it was a 26 year long process.
You know what's funny? Because 2 is feel, 6 is receive balance, and 8 is decide and it's control. That makes perfect sense that it was 26 years.
Yeah. I think it was 2 sets of 13 years.
And
But
1 is your heart, and 3 is you believe, and 1 plus 3 is 4, which you belong. That's why today is a belonging day. That makes so much sense. Like, this is why Chris's step system, that's why I've used Chris's step system to create a language to talk about the human experience based on the body.
you also said something where you're placing yourself out, you can triangulate around. And I really like emotional states as opposed to it enveloping us and taking control of us. Are we able to utilize our emotional states as tools, as aspects of self? And there's another book called Initiation, which is written by Elizabeth W.H., something like that. But she remembers her past lives, and one of them, she was she was a pharaoh's daughter, and she goes through the initiation process, and she explains it in this book. And I think it was the second thing she had to do. The first thing she had to do was like find like emptiness. Then the second thing is she started learning her emotions and started processing her emotions, and then she had to learn how to bring up emotions like at will. Can you make yourself fearful like this? Can you make yourself angry? Can you make yourself loving? And basically being able to flip through emotional states at will, and going through a bunch of practices so that first you're imagining to get to that state, and then it's just like you're able to just do it. Just like if we just walk around the room, we can turn left, we can turn right. Are we able to turn on and off our emotional states? And then that's how they would essentially be able to control reality, or at least harmonize with reality.
That's what a good actor does, actually.
I was thinking about. I'm friends with a very talented 30, 40-year-old stage actor, and he constantly talks about this.
Yeah. So, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the top actors on the planet as personal clients, and some of them I've spent between 15 and 20 hours of intimate time with, and I can tell the difference within minutes of working with them of whether they're good or not, because the good actors control the emotional state to garner the experience. Everybody else is like trying to avoid the emotion of the pain of the treatment, because in the old days of my garage, it was a level 7 pain experience for 2 hours, and that's how it started. And you could notice that that a good actor would go into the emotion and would make it a part of them. And a newer actor, not so good, wasn't. And not only actors, but I just noticed that specifically with actors, they could integrate that state.
Yeah, because an actor they need to be able to project that state into an audience.
Yes.
And so they must feel it fully. They can't avoid it. They need to be it. They're the projector of the
Yes.
emotions. And we can do that. We can do that. I teach my team, like, before getting on a call, like, where are you at? Right? Are you at, I just woke up, I have to work today? Like, is that your emotional state? Or are you at, you just found out that you won the lottery? and you're excited for life. And are you able to get into that emotional state and talk with excitement? And that's, man, the way that my actor friend Michael, the way that he talks about like how he would have to be before going onto a stage with like a sold out crowd. And he just found out his wife was cheating on him, like the character, and how he needs to come out and every step needs to embody that. Actors are amazing. Like in the human experience, actors study so much we don't realize how much like qigong and embodiment practices and posture therapy. They're into the good
Yeah,
ones at least.
good ones are, yeah, it's a job for them. Like some of them show up to try to act, but you're right. Like the good ones, and some of them are really into it. Like uh, Anatol Yosef is somebody I've worked with for like over a decade consistently, still today, like over the longest period of time, didn't come in and out. And Brandon Roth, who's Superman, I worked with for like 6 years. But Anatol, it's like he's going to seminars and workshops and programs and stuff like this. And he was in Boardwalk Empire, right? But he constantly improving the craft. And one day he read it was like it was a series of graphics in which he read a poem to, and he played it for me, and I'm like, wow, man. It was like so emotional about where society was, and I felt that he had the visuals in the poem, and I'm like, how is it possible that you can create that much emotion by just literally saying something? I'm not the guy who gets emotional by acting or by anything like that, and it's because of that constant working on the craft and learning to be in that part. And you see some of the good ones, they'll stay in character. I watched something the other day where Richard Gere was playing a homeless man, and so he went out on New York to live in as a homeless man for like 2 days or 3 days, and he was picking garbage out of the garbage bin, and only one person came and gave him everything, and he made her famous as a result, right? Because no one knew it was Richard Gere, and he was like, there's only one person that actually did, but that's a commitment to a craft.
Yeah. And it's really easy to hate on actors because from an outside perspective, you can just basically validate your perspective of them by saying that they're living a lie. But they really are experts in being a human. That's their job. And essentially, we're all actors. If you go
I like that,
like,
experts in being a human.
but we're all actors. If like because they do it on a screen and their craft gets shown to a lot of people, they're no different than you who's acting when you go to a job. Or like I said, when you're calling somebody, like we're acting all the time. We're acting in our different personas, is what they call that in psychology. We wear different masks.
So
Uh,
here's an interesting thing about actors. Okay, so I had all the DC comic heroes, almost all of them as clients at one point. So Courtney Ford, she played. So Courtney was Brandon's wife. So she had played all these romantic love stories and movies and Hallmark movies and all that. And then she became a like an evil superhero villain, and she's like casting all this. At the end of the season, and the same thing with Anatol, at the end of the season, their bodies were completely broken down. Like these are people that I had for multiple years. They go for a season of acting in a very angry,
right.
vicious, non-human part, and their bodies are broken down at the end of it.
They really have to get into that rage. Like that's the thing. You can't really fake acting.
Yeah.
And so it's real for them. Their
So so
bodies
the
feel it.
so they but this goes back to like how do we get ourselves out of those emotional states? Like you were saying on the call. It's like it's how you frame it, because if you act, this is where the power of becoming an actor, like you said in your life, and saying, okay, I'm going to act positive. And I I know it's like we have this twisted version of it where people are broken down and they go on Instagram, look at me, I'm also happy. And behind the scenes that they're not. That's the fake version. But when they show up throughout that day, not that one picture, they show up to that day and they challenge their belief systems and they say, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to see the positive, and they look for it and they work on it. That's different than the Instagram photo. And when they do that, they change their state of awareness, their state of being. And that's what you were saying to your team. How are you showing up? What are you doing?
Right. I like the notion of having multiple lenses, right? It's great if you feel one way, but how are you if you feel another way? Like, what if you put on a different set of glasses? How does that make you feel? What if, just basically what if? What if this? What if that? What if that is true? Same thing with like arguing with people. Well, are we able to see from their perspective? Because that's what's necessary for us to connect as human beings. It doesn't necessarily mean that we behave in our life from their perspective, but are we able to see from their perspective? That gives us leverage as well in negotiation, in business, in anything. We must be able to see and connect with what the other person is feeling in order for us to create a win-win situation. All negotiation, all of life, we should be striving for a win-win situation, because that answer is always present. It's always there.
You're
It's
one of
up
the
to
best
us to dig that
people
out.
I know that does that.
It's there. It's there. And like I said, where, like, pretend. Well, if what they're saying is completely wrong to me, what if it was true? Like, how? Like, what would have to happen? What would I need to be? What would I need to believe? What would I need to see for it to be true? And we don't need to be there, but to be able to hold that up, right? Like, to be able to say flat earth, round earth. I'm just using that as an example, right? Can they both be true? Like, it doesn't need to
I
be one or the other.
I honestly think with where we are in the world right now, I honestly think that we're in a realm, and yes, they both can be.
Right. And it's interesting because then now we're able to sense in multiple dimensions. Just like the difference between two-dimensional, just looking at flatness versus three-dimension. There can be multiple dimensions of the third dimension. And the question is, are we able to perceive it? Are we able to integrate what that means? And can we live a multidimensional existence? And it makes life a whole lot more fulfilling if we're sensing it from multiple perspectives, multiple
Okay, so
dimensions.
let's go to a post that you did recently, which was a great post. Now, all the colors.
Right.
How do you? Yeah, it was a great
I
post.
didn't
The
realize
music was great. I
that
mean,
was
that was
like tapping my
fantastic.
heart. And I didn't, you just made me realize that. I just was kind of just like to
Yeah,
the cue of the
you were
music.
like this, and you go
Boom.
change the color, boom, change the
Boom.
color.
Yeah.
Great post. And if you haven't seen the post, go to our wall, check it out. Ra's going through all the colors and what they mean. So do you use colors specifically and target them for states of awareness or how you want to show up in the world?
Mostly, I try very rarely, like basically right now, currently, I don't resonate with certain
Yeah.
colors. I don't resonate so much with color black. And so I like to wear white. And white for me is about brilliance, and it's not holding on to my own energy, it's not holding on to other people's energy. It reflects, right? So black kind of draws in. That's why black is attractive. That's why when you go to a nightclub, when everyone's trying to attract other people, black is going to draw people in. And that's why it also makes you look skinnier. That's why a lot of women like to wear black, because it slims you down because you don't see it. It literally makes you see less of a person when you wear black, because whatever you're looking at, it gets sucked in. That's also why our devices are black too. It's like drawing us into it. But white is the opposite. It reflects everything, and it reflects out as much as it projects myself out in its fullness. When we see somebody walking down the street and they're wearing a white shirt, white pants, white shoes, maybe even a white turban, it looks a little odd to us. However, there's the quality that we can very easily sense in them.
Yeah,
And it's like that.
there is. Like dark people don't usually wear white.
Right, but you go into like so for instance, when I was going through my yoga training, there was like a goth type person, very like, you just got this energy of like depression. The hair is like faded pink, like bleached and dyed and dyed and dyed, like, maybe it was like faded blue, but like black colors, black hat, black pants, black everything. And then we started talking about the technology of color, the technology of clothing. And one day she showed up kind of dressed like the rest of us, like all in white. And it was a different person, like completely different person. You can even tell internally she was different, smiling, even if, but completely different person based on just the colors of what she was wearing.
I I do see that. I actually I have purposely done that, not to the degree that you were showing on the video clip, but like when my I'll give you a story. When I went away, divorced my first wife, my mother of my kids, and went to California, and my cancer little daughter, and then went to prison. I kind of not kind of I hurt her quite a bit. So when she came back to face me, she dyed her hair red, and when she came, I'm like, oh yeah, I know I'm gonna get it.
Red is anger. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like she put red in her hair
Like
before
war.
she'd come to see me. She's preparing. She dyed her hair red, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go and meditate on this one. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's just also like where people put, where they place tattoos on their body. They think, well, I just did it for that reason. No, that's not how it works. The tattoos go on a specific part of the body to reference a meridian, to reference a blocking of an emotion of some sort.
Right. Or the need for expression.
Yeah,
There.
which is blocking an emotion causes a expression somewhere else, because the
Got it.
actual art of tattooing blocks the fascia. Depending on the depth of the needles, it blocks certain layers of fascia from moving. The first thing I think on our partner maneuver series, the See Me with Barefoot Sprinter, I remediated he had a shoulder injury on the other side, and he kept having it come over, popping out, dislocating. And we took his tattoo sleeve on the other side, we remediated the whole thing, and guess what? He stopped having shoulder injuries on this side because it wasn't pulling him out.
So the tattoo is creating like a adhesion between the
Yeah,
layers.
yeah. If you get an adhesion if you adhere this right here, all of a sudden I have a restriction of motion. If I let it go, open it up. So that's what we do is we remediate the tattoos. This is really actually that people we use this in professional sports. Like with professional athletes, they'll have repetitive injuries around areas that are tattooed. So it's actually it's not even my opinion. It's not like weird science. This is actually known in the high ends of therapy. If you got a tattoo and you have a repetitive injury cycle, we go and we stretch it, move all the tissue around it, etc.
I mean, yeah, the professional sports are dealing with billions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars, depending on who you are. The magic is certainly used in
It,
those realms.
it's funny because in human garage in the clinic, we have people come in and they're like, where's the science behind what you're going to do in the amateur athletes or whatever? And, even the beginning of the pros, and it's like, where's the science? And I got to figure this out. And then you get the top Olympic athletes or the top pros, and you say, this is what I'm going to do. And there's why. And they go, okay, go. Because they know to trust the feeling and they don't need anything else. And that's what makes them the top in the world. Everybody who's questioning everything, they're never, ever, ever going to be at the top. And
Right.
you could see the wannabe tops. But like it's funny. Like you look at like somebody like Tyson Gay. He was the fastest man in the world before Usain Bolt, and he these guys are so humble, and they come in and they say, here's what I have. You have a conversation, and they go, okay, let's go. And that's it. There's no conversation after that because they're there. They trust you. They're not trying to control it. That's why they are the best in the world.
Right. Right. They're already in drive. They're
Yeah.
not in park looking to get convinced.
Yeah.
They're in drive ready to go. And yeah, there's that saying, millionaires don't use astrologers, but billionaires do.
That is, here's one for all the doctors out there. Hippocrates said, a doctor who does not use astrology is not a doctor, but a fool. It's not me. That's Hippocrates. I'm repeating what he said.
The father of
The
everything
father of
that is medicine.
medicine, yeah. We got the Hippocratic Oath, but that's all we read. But Hippocrates is interesting, by the way. That's worth a conversation because there are things that organs like, for example, the spleen is the only organ that will grow by itself anywhere. Anywhere you have a pooling of blood, spleen will grow. So a lot of people, when they die, especially if they're overweight or not healthy in movement, they'll have 3 or 4 spleens in their body. And Hippocrates had this weird relationship with the spleen, and the spleen is, out of all the organs in modern medicine, is the least explained on purpose.
And people get their spleen removed, right?
Well, if you do, you have to have constant cleaning of your blood. So it's like without a spleen, like when you get your spleen done, like if you take out your primary, you'll die pretty quick. That's why in a prison, that's why they shank you right up here, right underneath the rib cage.
Well, if you get a ruptured spleen, then you apparently die, right?
Yeah, and same thing with appendix too. Right? You'll die from the ruptured appendix.
And then they remove the appendix. So I've seen some things that appendix job is to recycle nutrients into the body, similar to how the rectum recycles water into the body.
It is. It's not supposed to be cut out. If we're getting to the point where we need to cut it out, it's because we didn't listen to the body for a very long time. It didn't just accidentally happen. The body has nothing that just happens by accident, even things like cancer. The coolest thing about what we're doing, I had somebody ask me about the science of fascial maneuvers the other day. And I'm like, you're asking 3 years and going into 4 years of a worldwide project, which 20 million people are doing it. How much science is produced in 4 years of anything that's new? And I said, but what we have is 100,000 plus people reporting every day what's going on. That means that we have the biggest scientific study in the world happening right now, because that's what you do is you hire people to go survey people to find their information. We have them sending it to us constantly. Here's my stats, here's my figures, here's my pictures, here's all the stuff, pictures of all the stuff. We turn everybody into scientists.
People don't realize how science works. They think that because you have a study that says this and that's the end of it. It's not. It's very dynamic. And a lot of science takes decades. Decades and decades and decades. And when you have 100,000 experiments, essentially, pointing in one direction, that's science. However, that doesn't mean that it's accepted by the world. What gets accepted by the general public is what is the agenda of whoever's controlling the public.
What's funny? I just realized our conversation naturally, as we're ending, moved to science. And the next person I have coming up is a scientist.
Nice. Good.
But a very different scientist, like a scientist like we are.
Yeah. I mean, science is dynamic. It's not just what the media says it is. There's been, when we talk about ether, for example, there's an experiment that proved that the ether didn't exist because Einstein was pushing the theory of relativity, and that was what was sexy in the age. But there's also decades of other science that proved the existence of the ether. We just don't know it, and it proved it. Right. It's just all marketing, exactly. So that's really how science works. But the foundation of science isn't what we sort of get taught. We get taught that science is what's in textbooks. That's what we get taught science is. but that's not science. We can do our own science. Like
We are.
that.
That's what I love about you, me. We're like willing to try stuff. I mean, butthole tanning. Well, we could read about it in a book. That doesn't really let me experience it. So I got to go out and tan my butthole. That's what you did.
All right. On that note.
Ron,
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Doctor, I heard you mention a doctor or something is who you're talking to as well.
Yeah. Dr. Jennifer, she's coming, as is also a professor in a couple of universities. I'll get her to clarify that, but she works with also plant medicine. And this is really interesting because it's where plant medicine, when you're a doctorate in that, it's where science literally meets the esoteric side, because science, our current version of science says that doesn't exist, but it does exist, and it exists more than what we're doing. So I'm really excited about this talk, actually, and about her experiences, because she actually was down here a month ago.
Cool. Yeah. It's funny how they make certain plants illegal, but there's literally poison out there that's perfectly legal.
Yeah, coffee
for
and alcohol.
alcohol. Right. All right.
Okay, buddy.
Take care,
Great
Garry.
talk. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.